So what I'm trying to do here is a Dragonewt, and that's got sort of lizard look to it, and lizards are really quite weird. So lizards have kind of long spine, and then they have bits that do that, and then they have a kind of weird head. And humans have mostly the same body shape, in that they've got a spine and a little tail you can't really see anymore, but that's kind of where it ends. And so to be putting together two different things, to be putting together this is a lizard you've got to decide what you're actually going to do with the legs. And we're going to start with a gesture drawing, and a gesture drawing for this sort of thing is actually quite slow and difficult because I have to stop myself from doing a gesture drawing for a human being. But let's start. It's got a long neck. We want to make sure we don't make it too human. So that really long body is going to come into play, and let's, for the moment at least, humanise the shoulders, but little stubby toddler arms. It's going to have claws, but that's fine. And remember, this is basically just us working out where the actual anatomy will be going. So this is the really difficult bit. I want to get myself a set of legs that look completely non-human. This will be fun to draw because those will be coming out towards us. And lizard legs in foreshortening are not my favourite plan, but that's fine. We could give it a tilt of the head, or we could try and give it a really, really peaceful look, and we'll get to that in one sec. And meanwhile, it turns out that I've been doing all of that on the wrong layer. So, yoink. X, V. XC was bad there. Undo that. Copy. From layer 2, or cut from layer 2, paste to layer 1, and we'll do the same here. X. It hasn't actually gone to layer 1, but I don't care enough. I can't be bothered to flatten it down. What's important is that we're not drawing on the black layer, because we're about to draw on the black layer. This is where things get kind of complicated. We've got to convert what are basically guesses into actual anatomy. So, B to convert to a brush. We're using the same brush throughout. It helps maintain the view. So by the view there, what I mean is, if we did a sudden really different brush, let's find a really different brush, that kind of texture would be really jarring. And if we just use one in particular, then no texture ends up fighting with itself. Okay, this is our left hand as we're seeing it, so we're seeing the back of the hand, but what we're actually seeing is the back of a lizard's claw, and lizards don't really have the same hand backs as humans. So although it's got its fingers held in a meditational posture, they're actually going to seem really quite weird. We should probably give it the right number. And obviously there's a lot of blue under there, but we can get rid of that and see if what we've got actually looks like anything we want it to look like. However, it's very, very important to be ruled at this point by the gesture, and normally when you're drawing that, if you're drawing a human, that's kind of easy. You sort of get to know the anatomy as an artist, but for lizards, they are so different that you're going to end up trying to do human. And so it's very important to let your early drawing continue to rule. Whereas if I were drawing humans, I'll be absolutely fine with ignoring my underdrawing because I know what it looks like. That's good. We've given that a really thin body and it doesn't look like it's got humanity going on there. I'm actually kind of nervous of doing this head because I know just how horrible they are. But let's give it big, bulgy sort of eyes. It's got its head down because it's thinking, so we've got a pointed look. That's a bit snake-like, that's cool. I'm liking that. So what I'm doing here is what I do normally with a human hair. So I draw a human and then I kind of do the hair coming off it. Not like that, that's horrific. So while I've got smooth lines, I actually need to get rid of them. This is a case where I defaulted to human is the thing. No. The thumping. Excuse me, I just need to shout about the thumping. The thumping has mostly stopped. I can give it things like frills later on, and this is cool because this is again a non-human way of things meeting. If you're a human, you have that muscle bulging up there, and kind of you get deltoids there, and then you get stuff that sits over the top of the arm. But what happens with lizards is just frankly completely different. And you can't see this, but I have looked at quite a lot of lizards lately, and now I'm making it up as I go along. I'm trying not to be guided by real earth lizards. There's a bit of an error going on here where I'm doing the fingers as solid things, and they're going to need to be coloured. But just for the moment I want to make sure that it actually all works, so I'm putting them in, and those aren't quite symmetrical in height, which is a bit annoying. I've got a wrist there and a wrist there, but I don't think it's unbalancing, and I'm just going to press on for the moment. Okay, legs. So lizard legs again are weird. They're really long and thin. They've got bouncy bony bits. I don't actually know if Dragonewts themselves are cold or hot-blooded. So this bit here comes in front because we are in foreshortening. That should be bonier. That bit again goes in front, and then I guess there's a little bit of foot there, and then some more claws, and later we'll redo these claws. Or possibly I'll forget about it. But what we've really got from the side is something sitting like this. So it's got its arms up, and then it's got its feet all the way out. And this actually isn't really going to come together until we get a load of colour in it and find out what actually is going on. Because one of the interesting things about, oh, this one has a foot base to walk on. One of the interesting things about Dragonewts is I get to colour them in. So we've given it 5 fingers, but I think I want to go with a 4-toe option. And now, yeah, that's kind of okay. Our legs are still really sketchy, so we'll actually have the confidence of our convictions here and try to do something that we really mean. Because if we don't have solidity in the legs, then we're not going to have any form of realism in the rest. And I know it sounds a bit weird to talk about realism when we're drawing what is essentially a cartoon, but people pick up on differences. So for the same reason that we're using one brush throughout, we're going to use the same style of relatively heavy lines, and if they're tentative before, we solidify them. And now is a chance to do things like enforce a viewing angle there. Go, ooh, you know what, I actually need more solidity, and that's fine. And we can just experiment a bit with how legs go. Yeah, not quite. Maybe. Frankly, no. I kind of messed that up, and this is a point where I have to kill my darlings, because I really like that curve there, but it's just in the wrong place. So I'm going to shorten it. The eraser is set as the same thing that I'm colouring with and that I'm drawing with, and that means that it gives kind of a negative but same effect on the edge. So that's more of the keeping it all the same. We don't have a parallel line over here, and we have an almost parallel line over there. So make that heavier. Kill things we don't want. There. And now, kind of, I think that the reason that this is I think this is now a tiny bit too low. This is too thick and too short. So we're gonna just transform. I don't know, that's clip it, that's annoying. Let's go into various clips. Transform. Just make it a little bit taller. And it's got to be a little bit thinner, so we decide how far out that is. That one's gone a bit further out, so it's a little bit thinner that way. Oh, I didn't want the colour balance, I wanted to get back to a brush. And now we get to the actual fun bit, colour. So, layer 3, and I recently did a rainbow unicorn, so now I'm considering doing a rainbow thing. But now we can do things like, do we want various crests going down there? And we can repeat this colour layer and make it visible and invisible, depending on what we've got. So I'm going to start with a crest that comes down here, which kind of identifies the style of Dragonewt, but that's fine. It's got bright colours on its back. We're not showing much of its back, but we're definitely showing kind of back of the hand stuff. So there at least. Yeah, you know what, I don't usually use solid fill colours, but these are Dragonewts and they are weird, so I'm just going to go in heavy. Normally when I'm colouring something like this, especially in the early stages, it's like that. It's just suggestions of colour, and I use them to build direction as well. But in this particular case, absolutely and completely, Dragonewts are weird. Now we'll tip that into orange to take that way. The reason I'm doing a Dragonewt is that yesterday I was playing Dragonewts, and I rather enjoy doing that, where players have absolutely no idea what's going on, and you know, I glory in their horror and confusion. And this particular Dragonewt, I understand this is actually how Pokemon work. So they basically only say about one thing. But what they're actually saying is the thing that they've been given to meditate upon. So this one says mystery is a mystery. And once it understands that, it'll be able to advance further. If you have got any suggestions or anything, please put them in the chat channel and talk to me, because I am looking at it occasionally and I don't know as much about Dragonewts as a lot of Glanthans do. So while I'm making bits up for myself, I'd also like to know what you think. So if you are on Twitch, please do say some stuff. But yeah, my favourite Dragonewt is called Impatience is a Cloister, and it has been meditating on the concepts that impatience is a cloister for some time now. It thinks it's almost got to the bottom of it. Dull. But unfortunately, because it thinks it's got to the bottom of it, it's desiring to move on, and desire is a prison, and that's probably the next thing it's going to be told. Okay, I've done enough of that. Now we need a contrasting colour, probably. So I kind of like that blue, but we've used a lot of blue. The fun thing about this is I can just move around the colour wheel, and it's going to keep my dot in position, so I get my tones staying the same. Well, let's look at this orange. No. Maybe, but I think we need to desaturate a lot. We're going to make this lighter, and this is my more general colouring in style for this sort of thing. So let's see how, oh gosh, that's heavy. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to say no to that for the moment, and then we'll do it as a second colour layer later, because that's not really floating my boat. However, we've got an orange and a red, and that red definitely belongs there and there, because that's the bits that we can see. That's kind of outside top of lizard. I kind of want to flake out and do a really pale undercolour and do a yellow, and I don't know, will this work? Maybe. That's a kind of scaly colour. It's certainly going with the purple as we've got it. And yeah, I think it kind of blends in. I'm going to have to work a bit on that blending in the area between, but I think this is working, and I should probably be planning the colours better, but this is essentially just making it up as we go along. So yeah, Impatience is a Cloister, the Dragonewt. It attempted to communicate with one of the players by hopping up to him in a snowstorm and throwing things that looked like snowballs but actually were eggs, and this was genuinely communication from the Dragonewt, because what it was trying to say was, you are bound by the elements, and that was why I was hopping so it didn't touch the snow everywhere, and fertility is an issue for you, so it was throwing eggs at him. And to the Dragonewt, these were perfect ways of understanding. Unfortunately, the human could only listen in Hjortling, otherwise known as confusion. Okay, so those are looking like froggy legs. Yeah, I think I like this. It's certainly brighter than what I've got normally, but Dragonewts live in a different world. Now, let's attend to this. We want to get them. Let's just try a little bit lighter. We're still going to go desaturated, but we're looking for, yeah, that's a good colour, because it's still mostly going with the red, but we can see all the black over it. with this sort of thing I don't generally bother with setting up a light source. So actually we kind of have a palette of colours here. So looking at it, I can see what's going on. We're going to need to deal with the fingers, and we'll probably do that next. And generally I leave the blue undercolour alone. I don't remove it because it provides a secondary layer of colour when I'm just going scritch, 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 scritch. But right now I don't think we actually need it anymore, and it's getting in the way, it's confusing me. So we'll remove that. We have some darkness we need to put in here. We've got some shadows. I haven't bothered with a light source usually, but it's coming in mostly from the left. This is me drawing a graph, trying to work out where it's actually from. Like, where do I want it? Do I want it coming in from the front? Do I want... Here is my graph. Actually, there is my graph. So let's have it quite tall from the top. All I'm doing here is just a sort of little vector drawing of where the light is. So quite a lot from the top. A little bit from the front. And a little bit from that side. One sec. I'm streaming in a house with other people and they're selfishly trying to have ordinary conversations around me. I don't understand why this is allowed. Okay. So we'll go back to this colour now and take a desaturated version and just pick out various highlights. Remember where the shadows are being cast so we can't see it all. Ordinarily I wouldn't be doing this layer of highlighting, but I'd be doing scribble sketching and scribble colouring instead. So because I put in flat colour, it actually needs the shadow, otherwise you don't get to know enough about what's going on. Oops, under that please, wink, wink, wink. Yeah, and that's actually the bit that was worrying me there. What was happening was when we had a very flat area, you couldn't see that this was three-dimensional, so he was floating up off the page. He, she, it, not actually entirely sure. I'll go with it. The feet definitely need to be arched. That's kind of in the light. Light's mostly from the top, so we'll remember that actually that shoulder picks up a bit as well, and that this gets darkened. Because that's a shadow that's being cast, and then these shadows go in because the scales are overlying each other. Although that's not massively clear, so I'm probably going to have to strengthen these scales, because right now these ones look like segments and these ones don't really look like they're doing much. That looks like one solid plate and it shouldn't be the case. And we're just going desaturated and higher saturation. Not even by much. I don't think that needs much there. Maybe just at that end. Give it some shaping. There, just at that end, to shape it. It does look a little more like it's got a mouth now. That's our bright red. Our bright red is in shadow here. And now it's really just a question of working out One sec. People, even more selfishly, are trying to offer me food and nice things, and I just don't understand. I mean, here I am, antisocially working away, and people are being nice to me. Curse them. Yeah, I kind of like this sharp bit here, and I'm wondering if making that orange was a mistake. Like, why do I need to buy off the fact that I'm using bright red? I don't think I want to. Now it's just got the two colours, I like it more. It's still got red, orange in the crest. I said some big words a few minutes ago about doing the fingers, so back to layer 2. And now the fingers are going to be lying over each other. And I like that look, but I got to get rid of it because it was just a placeholder. Oop, too slow and too thick. We're drawing the one closest to us first because we're going to have to draw the other ones behind it. They are little balloons. I wonder if I care. I probably do care that they're little balloons. So one problem is I've been doing curves, and in fact I want to be doing shapes. I want to be doing harsh lines. Because we are talking lizard, we're not talking balloon animal, and we're not talking human. Make them thinner. There, that's less human. We still have to get them behind each other, but with sharper shapes, I'm liking it more. Yeah, there, we did sharp shapes in the first place. But now we get rid of them. And really from this point in it's just procedural improvements, like which bit can I do next? And the reason that I'm using this channel is I'm hoping that within the next week or two, probably on Wednesday, but you know how these things work, that I'll be able to... okay, it no longer looks like it's meditating, but I think I like it. I'm hoping that I'll be able to stream an actual play session, and this is mostly just practice. Right, we need to situate it within something. So back to layer 2, back to black. What's it doing and why is it here? I think it's just meditating on something. Probably on a great big rock. It's a square rock, so presumably it's either meditating on fertility or on how to avoid it, I don't know. But it turns out that I've done a square rock. We'll give it a bit of actual angle because we're looking at it from the front. But it's not a perfect angle. Give it some cracks, and then choose a rocky colour or two. And it's got to be a rocky colour that kind of suits all that stuff. Yeah. So it's not clashing horribly. I may not get round to doing the toes because I like the colouring in bits much more. If I'm doing this properly, I do lots and lots of different colour layers and everything goes behind everything else. And if I'm doing it properly, also, I don't do it on layer 2, I do it on layer 3, the colour layer. And we don't actually need this to be edged. So I'm just gonna do a little bit more colouring in for a bit. I'm quiet for a moment. I can tell that I like this particular drawing program because I've picked up all the shortcuts to it really quickly. So for me, changing to an eraser brush is just an automatic touch on things. Changing a colour is an automatic touch. It's a little bit awkward because occasionally I find myself doing real world colouring and reaching for the tools, and recently, yes, I made a mistake in pencil, so I hit Control Z, and it was only when the pencil mark didn't vanish that I realised what I'd done. There we go, so he's sitting against nothing, and I'm okay with him sitting against nothing because, you know, Dragonewt weirdness. But the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you a completely different colouring style and how I would ordinarily do things. So, random layer, grab this, and normally it's really quite quick, I just get the colours in like this, but I'm not sure it really works for the Dragonewts. It's a very, very quick sketch style and I use it to develop ideas, so it'll tell me quite quickly whether anatomy becomes solid when the colour goes on, for example. Because that's a light colour and I'm not putting it on solidly, I have to use the more desaturated version. So this just basically tells me that, yeah, it kind of holds together, and if this was a sketch I could then stop and do the proper thing, and I'll just keep this as a reference. Yeah, you want dark purple there. And it's on this sort of thing that having the blue can be really handy, because it provides an extra layer of information, like it reminds me that I had that curve there. And I lose that if I have the solid colour layer. Wow. I can also do that. I can just have the two different colour layers on top of each other. The head looks hideous though. So what I have here is something solid, and now I'm going to noodle at it for a while because the feet are annoying me. Whatever the heck is going on with my first layer of black is annoying me. So I need to make sure either that those are all the same or that they're all... yeah, that doesn't work. So all the same that way doesn't work, which means all the same this way is probably what I have to do in black. And I don't want to have too many scales, but at the same time it is a lizard. So I've got to just experiment how does multiple scale levels go. And I think that kind of works, but I don't know. Got to do it all until I understand how it actually works. Yeah, I think so. Remember, and biologists may cry at this point, and I know one particular biologist who's probably about to hunt me down. What I'm doing is not attempting to draw a lizard. What I'm attempting to do is service people's understanding of what a lizard looks like. So now that is a little bit messy and I'm not quite sure how to deal with it, but one way is to add more scales here so that everything that's pale has the same amount of messiness. Just imagine that your lizard has been attacked by a crazy paving elemental. So yeah, the idea of what we're doing isn't to create the lizard, it's to create an understanding of the lizard that people actually kind of already have in their heads. So the very simplest way of drawing a person is about that, and just about everyone can understand that this means smiley face. And because it's so simple, people just go, yeah, smiley face, and get on with it, and they add in their own understanding of what a smiley face is. I know what's happening. I've got the wrong version of left and right and front and back there. That's why I'm muddled up, because actually you can see the inside, and I was thinking that the thumb would be out that way and looking at the wrong side of my hand when I was trying to use myself as a reference. So now he's got a lot of busyness going on in here. We need something up there that isn't just colour, and it may be that we need to put something in the background. A giant skipping rope cat's cradle thing, and I think that if we get something right there, we're going to have an appropriate frame, and then the busy part here ties it all together. So he's on a square thing. Maybe he's thinking about the air. He's a red round colour right now. So I think that he is contemplating the uselessness of human runes, and therefore I can create a human rune-ish sort of shape. And because we're doing this freehand and because it's sketchy, I'm actually gonna go with the sketchiness. It's like, why should your understanding of the rune be the correct one just because you're meditating on it for 3 years? Oh, too dark. Now, oh, I know what he's meditating on. There's this blank bit in here, and what he's thinking about is the blank darkness that isn't part of the room, but is a necessary part of it anyhow. So he is essentially thinking of this donut shape, which is quite cool because there's a torus round here, then there's a torus round here, and maybe he's wondering if no matter how far you go, it's toruses all the way down. That's given him more framing, and now the head is able to compete against the busy stuff here, but I think I still want something to say what's going on in there. Yellow is a horrid choice, and that's probably not the right yellow one anyhow. So we'll choose a pure yellow, and then we'll go just round towards red. We're back on layer 2 again. Layer 3, our colour layer. So here we're actually going to use directionality in our strokes. It's kind of all coming out of his head. And if he had a feather headdress, all of these things would be coming out in this way. Plus, it lets us conveniently ignore the fact that we can't easily draw a perfect circle. Human beings can learn to do that. And there are even circle drawing competitions, and yes, there's a thriving YouTube community. But I have never picked up that knack, and I don't intend to. So there, we've introduced some sketchiness into it, which overlays the bold solid colour here, and that lets us get away with discoloration. And I think it's got some kind of sun rays, but actually that just looks like a mess. And one last thing, which is those big noises I made about the toes. I will never be happy with the toes unless I rebuild them, so we're going to pretend we know anything about how lizard feet operate. Got a little bit there. Ah yeah, now I recall, I like drawing their weapons as if they're part of a natural thing, so I think this one has swordbreaker feet. And if you don't think that they have swordbreaker feet, you're naturally very wrong, because swordbreaker feet are awesome. Too big. That one's got to be a small one at the edge, or it's got to come from further back there. The actual swordbreakers I generally draw with teeth, however. And then this has probably got to have a grey colour fill, because that's claws. There. And that's me not just experimenting, but coming to the conclusion that I like drawing the feet and I don't like drawing the hands. We'll move that to there. Clean up a few of these lines. There we go. Dragonewt. So, thank you for being with me. I have enjoyed doing this. Hello Patterner Girl, I see I've picked up someone. And I'm going to be streaming some actual play of role-playing later. I can't say that an earthy, fire-corrupted Dragonewt isn't going to make it in. There may very well be one, but I'm not going to say that it is either. I haven't made up my mind yet. It's only on Wednesday. I write the plot on Wednesday evening, 5 minutes after we start. Alright, thank you for joining us, and have a good day.